Hello and welcome to The World Today on CGTN with me, Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Let's begin with your top story this hour, where the presidents of China and Algeria have exchanged congratulations over the successful launch of an Algerian satellite by China's Long March 2C rocket took off from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China today. China's President Xi Jinping called the event a vivid reflection of the China-Algeria Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. His Algerian counterpart, Abdelmajid, will deepen. The satellite will be used for land planning and disaster prevention. Moving on, the United States continues to threaten Iran while moving military assets to the Middle East. U.S. President Donald Trump suggested he had informed the leadership in Tehran of a deadline for
sending actually a larger number of ships to Iran, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we do make a deal, that's good. If we don't make a deal, we'll see what happens.
Are you giving Iran any kind of deadline to make a deal before potentially taking
Only they
action?
know for sure.
Have you communicated that? Do you have a timeline for when you're going to pull back potentially the federal presence there?
No, we'll see how it all works out.
Meanwhile, a U.S. missile destroyer has docked at Israel's Red Sea port city of Eilat, further boosting the country's defensive capabilities. Multiple plans to strike Iran. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Pentagon will be prepared to deliver what Trump expects. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has rejected threats of force and reiterated dignity-based mutual respect. The Iranian military warns it will respond quickly to any attack. Well, Iran's foreign minister says Tehran is ready to return to negotiations with the United States, but insists its defense and missile capabilities will not be part of during talks in Istanbul on Friday with his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan. Meanwhile, Iran's military spokesman says U.S. military assets are within the range of Iran's medium-range missiles in the Gulf region. Mikhail Bardavid reports.
Iran's foreign minister expects fair and equitable negotiations with the United States, but stressed that no preliminary arrangements for talks have yet been made. The comments come as U.S. President Donald Trump ramps up pressure on Tehran, including an increased military presence in the Gulf, while not develop nuclear weapons.
The results of the negotiations will be determined at the negotiation table, not before the talks. If one side wants to impose its demands in advance, this is no longer a negotiation, and the Islamic Republic of Iran will never enter.
Hakan Fidan said Ankara was ready to support diplomatic efforts between Washington and Tehran, while reiterating that Turkey opposes any foreign military intervention in Iran. Arakci also said Tehran was prepared for both diplomacy and conflict, adding that Iran was even more U.S. strikes, which Washington said targeted Iranian nuclear-related facilities.
I should also state unequivocally that Iran's defensive and missile capabilities and Iran's missiles will never be the subject of any country is prepared to compromise with anyone over its own security and defense.
While Arakci accused Israel of pursuing policies that destabilize the region, Turkey's foreign minister went further, claiming Israel was acting to launch a military attack on Iran. Regional powers are stepping up diplomatic efforts to prevent a direct military confrontation between the United States and Iran, a conflict that could destabilize the wider Middle East. But with Tehran refusing to negotiate with Washington across the region. I'm Mikhail Bardavid for CGTN in Kayseri, Turkey.
Now, after weeks of delays that disrupted the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, Israel says it will reopen the Rafah crossing with Egypt on Sunday for pedestrians follows the recovery of the body of the last Israeli hostage in Gaza as the first phase of the ceasefire agreement comes to a close. Well, let's get more on that story now. Our correspondent Yasser Hakim is in El Arish as the Rafah border is set to reopen. Yasser, thank you for joining us on the event in this conflict between Israel and Palestine. What is the atmosphere like in El Arish as Sunday's reopening approaches now, and what kind of activity are you seeing?
Yes, El Arish is a said has been ramping up in the last couple of days, and now that the confirmation of the reopening after several delays we've seen more activity from aid agencies showing up in the city that is going to be monitoring the arrival and departure of Palestinians from Gaza at the Rafah border has arrived into the border right now with the Palestinian delegation and the Egyptian officials to coordinate. Ali Shat, who is the head of the Palestinian committee that would run Gaza or manage Gaza, said that Sunday will be a sort of test day, trial day for the operations, and Monday will be the first official day. We expect it to be the first day of action. Also, the EU, we understand the EU members are about from France, Italy, and Spain. Those are the ones who are monitoring the security situation and the checkup for everyone who will be. It has sent the names of the Palestinians who want to enter Gaza on the first day. We understand there's no confirmation of how many will be entering every day or leaving, but the average, as we understand, but not official sources, it's like around. Obviously the hospitals in Egypt are now on high alert. There are about 20,000 injured Palestinians registered in Gaza who want to leave Gaza to be treated outside Gaza. The Al Arish hospital, which is nearby the Rafah border crossing here in Al Arish city, is the closest to Rafah, and it will be receiving some of the injured depending on the cases. So if it's more sort of sophisticated case or critical case, it will be sent to other places in Cairo, the capital. And from past experiences in this situation here in Egypt last year or the year before, some cases even were sent to the United Arab Emirates and Turkey for treatment there, especially issues like cancer and so forth, because around 4,500 children have also registered to come to Egypt to be treated, and they're all injured from the attacks by Israel and also from the fallout of these attacks and the humanitarian crisis and diseases that have engraved the strip because of the lack of food, water, clean water for health and medical services.
Yeah, so let me just jump in here and talk about the aid agencies. They must be busy considering what's coming up in delivery and security. And also Egypt has been taking a lead role in mediating the Gaza ceasefire. What role is it also playing in facilitating this reopening?
Okay, first of all, the aid trucks is not an issue. Israel said that the opening of the border, the Rafah border, will only be for pedestrians, only be for civilians coming in and out, but there will be no increase in the number of aid trucks. Egypt is negotiating behind the scenes with Israel and the United States to try to push the number of aid trucks higher than it is now. Now it's around 100 aid trucks go into Gaza from the Karam Shalom crossing just beside the Rafah border. That's due after the October Sharm el-Sheikh ceasefire agreement signed in October last time. However, 600 to 1,000 are needed every day. Israel only allows 100. So this is an issue still being discussed, and we don't know if tomorrow we'll see any more aid trucks happening. Tomorrow is all about civilians going in and out. The priority for civilians leaving Gaza, as per Egyptian government, are only the injured and the sick. They are the priority, around 20,000. They will be given the heads up to start coming to Egypt from the first day. So that's what we know. And then the rest will be later on. And they will be taken by ambulances from the Rafah border crossing straight to the hospitals. They will not stop anywhere. From the Rafah border crossing inside, in ambulances from Egypt to the different hospitals around the country. As for the Egyptian efforts, Egypt has been mediating the efforts, and which led to the agreement in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, attended by the US President Donald Trump. But for facilitating, Egypt has done all the logistics with the Palestinian Authority, with the Palestinian group team, the EU team, and Israel, to try to ease the process for the Palestinians to go in and the Palestinians to leave. One sticking point was how many would go in Egypt and how many would leave Egypt. Israel wants around 50 to leave Egypt into Gaza, only 50 per day. And 150 to leave Gaza into Egypt. So that's a process to empty Gaza from Palestinians slowly using the Rafah border crossing. Egypt has refused that. This is one of the reasons why there has been a delay, because it wants all the equal number. If 1,000 Palestinians go into Egypt, 1,000 Palestinians would be permitted to go back to their homes in Gaza. There are around 100,000 Palestinians stranded in Egypt since the war began, and they want to go back. So we'll see tomorrow what was the result, how many will go in and how many will leave. We don't know yet, but tomorrow everything will be clearer. Back to you.
All right, Yasser, thank you very much for those updates as we await the reopening of the Rafah border crossing on Sunday. Yasser Hakim there in El Arish, Egypt. Finally, Russia and Ukraine say they have temporarily paused attacks on each other's energy infrastructure after US President Donald Trump's request to halt such strikes. Moscow says President Vladimir Putin accepted Trump's request in order to create favorable conditions for peace talks. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says neither side has carried out energy strikes over the past day, but he says Russia had shifted its strategy to attacks on logistics infrastructure, including rail hubs. Ukrainian officials say hundreds of residential buildings in Kyiv remain without heating after earlier strikes damaged power systems. Kyiv also says its air defense capacity has been strained due to delayed European payments to the US under a weapons purchase program, slowing deliveries of Patriot missile systems. Despite the temporary pause, no formal ceasefire agreement has been reached at this time. And that's it for this edition of The World Today. Do stay with us. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Thanks for watching. More than 200 people are killed at a mine following a landslide in the mineral-rich eastern DRC. Uncertainty looms in Ethiopia's northern region of Tigray following reports of clashes this week. And reports of child abductions and abuse emerge in Sudan as fleeing witnesses continue to reveal the horrors of the conflict. Hello and welcome on board to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Mahia, Mutua in Nairobi. Here's what else is coming up. In business, Ethiopia's $1 billion debt restructuring deal stalls. And in sports, Egypt continues its dominance in squash with a double win at the Tournament of Champions in New York. We begin in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, where more than 200 people are reported to have been killed in a landslide near the city of Goma. The deaths occurred at a coltan mine in Rubaya, which caved in from the extra pressure from Wednesday's landslide. Rescuers have begun retrieving bodies from the scene, with the death toll expected to rise. CGTN's Jane Keo tells us more.
Local authorities say a landslide at Gakombe coltan mining quarry in North Kivu province has buried alive over 200 people, with women and children among them. It came following heavy rains in the Rubaya area, which is located some 60 kilometers northwest of the rebel-held city of Goma. The landslide swept away everything in its path, causing the mine to cave in. Eyewitnesses have been giving their accounts of events. Some say they were very lucky to survive.
It rained, a landslide followed, and it swept people away. Some were swallowed up. Others died in the wells. Many are still trapped inside.
The hillside collapsed on me while I was digging to extract minerals.
Goma's mayor says he's been visiting those admitted to hospital with injuries. He told media that some bodies have been retrieved, but many remain missing. The search and rescue efforts will continue for another few days, with hopes that some survivors can be found under the rubble. Jane Keo, CGTN.
Right, let's get more on this story this hour. We can now cross to Goma, where our correspondent Jaffa Al-Kantanti is standing by. Jaffa, thank you for joining us. This is obviously a tragic turn of events. What is the latest we're hearing, and what information have authorities shared so far?
The information is so bad because many people have been killed and others still missing till now in the city of Rubaya. As you know, Rubaya is one of the important and biggest mining sites of coltan in the eastern DRC, where more than 1,000 of people work every day. And last night, there was a problem with a lot of rains who causes that landslide. And till now, we still don't have the real records because many people, including even children, were around the mine and they are still missing.
Right, and Jaffa, with many people still believed to be trapped inside, we're hearing up to 200 at this time. How are rescue and recovery efforts progressing there?
That's another problem. The way to Rubaya from Goma is not good. And in this rain season, I don't expect that any help will arrive in Rubaya sooner. Because can you imagine, the drama was on Friday, and it's in the evening of yesterday that we knew here in Goma, while from Rubaya to Goma is just 60 kilometers. The first problem is the lack of communication because the zone of North Kivu had a problem of internet and mobile phone service, except the city of Goma, which is served, but all other villages doesn't have network. So the communication between Rubaya and Goma is different. It is difficult from giving any information to see or to know how and when the rescue teams will arrive in Rubaya is impossible for now.
Right, and finally, Jaffa, what measures are currently being put in place to prevent possibly similar incidents in the future?
Come again, please.
I'm asking what measures are being put in place at this time to prevent these incidents happening in the future?
For now, the governor of North Kivu calls people, locals who stays, the problem is that there is not a difference between the city of Rubaya and the mining site of Rubaya, because people are surrounding the mining site, and the hill which had land said it was also occupied by some families. The governor of North Kivu called these people to leave the zone because something else, the same thing can happen sooner as raining are often. But there is not any plan from the M23 leadership or even from the governor or the government of DRC before, because this is not the first time. In 2017, there was a big drama where more than 500 people were missing. And this tends to be a continuation of the lack of infrastructure in that mining site, because there is no any security, any technology to protect miners or even the people living surrounding the mine.
All right, Jaffa, thank you very much for your insights this hour. Jaffa Alcantanti there in Goma in the eastern DRC. Now to Nigeria, where at least 25 people have been killed in suspected Boko Haram militant attacks in the country's volatile northeast. In one attack, some of the victims were casual laborers who had traveled to the town of Sabongari to work at a construction site when gunmen opened fire. That is according to some relatives of the victims. Meanwhile, in a separate attack on the same day, a military spokesperson said that fighters struck an army base, killing at least 9 soldiers and 2 members of a civilian task force, while also wounding 16 others. The attacks happened in the state of Borno, which remains the epicenter of a 17-year insurgency by Boko Haram and Islamic State's West Africa province, with militants repeatedly targeting military convoys and civilians. Nigeria has faced sustained pressure to restore security, including cooperation with U.S. forces following recent counter-terror operations. Let's turn to Ethiopia, where tensions are mounting in the volatile northern region of Tigray. Clashes have been reported there this week, 3 years after a peace deal that ended a brutal civil war between the army and the regional Tigray People's Liberation Front. Flights into Tigray remain cancelled and residents are now fearing the worst. The African Union has called for dialogue, urging all parties to exercise maximum restraint. CGTN's David Mbithi with the details.
For now, a sense of normalcy prevails in Mekelle, the largest city in northern Ethiopia, the capital of the Tigray region. But news of clashes between regional forces and federal troops in western Tigray is fueling fresh anxiety. Some say the memories of siege and fighting remain fresh in their minds and fear that renewed instability could force young people back into war.
We are very concerned about the current situation. As in the past, we fear having to send our children to war. We also fear running out of money. We fear seeing the siege again. We fear sending our children into a war. We are saying that the past is enough.
Many queuing at the banks have also voiced frustration, saying they're only allowed to withdraw 2,000 Ethiopian birr, the equivalent of $13 US. Shopowner Tsehaya Gebremichael says businesses are still recovering from the devastating 2-year war that ended with the 2022 peace agreement.
This is very worrying. When we compare with the past, we faced a lot of damage, especially when you see it through the eyes of a business owner. We lost our time as young people. Our next plans failed due to the war. We fell behind in technology and networks. I also believe that, with regard to banking services, the situation can create problems.
Ethiopia's national carrier has cancelled flights to and from the troubled region, with customers receiving messages that cited unplanned circumstances. The carrier issued no public statement, and neither did Ethiopian authorities. The African Union is calling for de-escalation 3 years since the region emerged from a conflict it says killed at least 600,000 people. David Mbithi, CGTN.
We head to Sudan now, where the horrors of the ongoing conflict continue to be revealed by witnesses. Fighting broke out in Khartoum in April 2023 between the army and a paramilitary group known as the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. It quickly spread to different parts of the country, including the western region of Darfur, where entire cities came under long sieges before being seized by the RSF. Now, as residents flee towns such as El Fasher, they bring with them harrowing stories of extraordinary cruelty and child abuse. Here now is CGTN's Hlonela Lupuana with more.
The army has been in a brutal power struggle with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces since April 2023. In the meantime, both sides have been accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity as they look for an edge in a conflict that sees no sign of ending. The long siege and eventual takeover by the RSF of the western city of El Fasher has become synonymous with such incidents. Tens of thousands of people fled the city in the last few months, many seeing no choice but to risk their lives and the lives of their loved ones. For those who reached safety, they brought with them stories which could define the whole conflict. 26 witnesses spoke to Reuters after fleeing to the North Darfur town of Tawila or to eastern Chad. They described multiple incidents of where children were abducted after their parents were killed.
One was 10 years old, one was 11, one was 12, one was 13 years old. These are 4. The RSF came with their cars, with people's livestock. They took the children to 10 people's livestock. They were in cars and the children in front with the livestock. I don't know where they took the children, but I'm sure I saw it between Tawila and Zamzam.
We were going from Al Fashar to Zamzam. We were on the Kome road. The RSF intercepted us. They came on a car. There were 2 civilians and 2 camel riders. We had some livestock. They took them with them and my 2 brothers.
Fatima Yaya explained how in 2023, her family and others were stopped by RSF fighters en route to El Fasher. They blindfolded 2 boys and 1 girl and left with them.
We went to an area called Karamaje. They made us spend 3 nights there. There were some families there with us. They took 3 children, put them in a car with RSF soldiers on either sides. Until now, we don't know what happened to them.
A report released last month by Amnesty International mentions such child abductions. During a briefing at the UN Security Council on January 20th, Deputy ICC Prosecutor Nazat Shamim Khan said her office was investigating alleged crimes with particular focus on violence against women, girls and children. The hope is that when the conflict ends, those who have carried out such heinous crimes will ultimately be brought to justice. Hlonela Lupuana, CGTN.
In Niger, the Islamic State militant group has claimed responsibility for Thursday's attack on the country's main airport in the capital Niamey. That is according to jihadist monitoring group Site Intelligence. Gunfire and explosions were reported at the airport in the early hours of Thursday morning. An affiliate group of the Islamic State has been linked to deadly assaults in Niger in recent months, including killings in the Tillaberi region and the abduction of an American pilot. Niger authorities had claimed the attack was carried out by mercenaries on a mission supported and sponsored by France, Benin and Côte d'Ivoire. Calm has since returned to Niamey, but the U.S. Department of State has ordered non-emergency personnel and families to leave the country. Meanwhile, the United Nations is warning of a rapidly worsening humanitarian crisis in South Sudan as escalating violence in Jonglei state drives mass displacement and disease, while also putting civilians at growing risk. Aid operations are also under severe strain, with access a growing problem. Now, a senior UN official says communities are now facing extremely dangerous conditions.
While the fighting is force on force at the moment, civilians are caught in the crossfire, losing their lives, their homes, with over 200,000 people reportedly displaced by the Jonglei conflict this month alone. These vulnerable communities are further impacted by a sharp surge in cholera, With 125 cases reported in Jonglei this month alone, we've had 479 cases reported countrywide. And this comes after we've just gotten out of a bad outbreak of cholera, the worst that South Sudan has seen, with over 97,000 cases overall. Treatment centers are overwhelmed and critically short of supplies. An emergency response in Jonglei is currently underway.
South Sudan's government, meanwhile, says it's working to contain a worrying cholera outbreak in the east of the country. The health ministry says 28 people have already died in Jonglei state, whilst dozens are still receiving treatment. It comes as an escalation in violence in the region has caused a massive displacement crisis. Here now is CGTN's Patrick Oyet.
Cholera is an acute diarrhea infection that's common in displacement settings because the conditions such as overcrowding, poor sanitation and lack of safe water are ideal for the rapid spread of the bacterium that causes the disease. South Sudan's health ministry says that's exactly what has happened in Jonglei state. The United Nations says more than 230,000 people are displaced as a result of clashes there between government and forces loyal to Riek Machar. The health ministry says preparations are underway for a mass oral cholera vaccination campaign in the area. South Sudan has been grappling with cholera since 2024. Nearly 100,000 cases and about 1,600 deaths have been reported nationwide since the outbreak began.
The Ministry of Health reassures the public that it is working tirelessly with the partners to contain the outbreak, strengthen surveillance, improve access to safe water and sanitation, and to ensure timely treatment for those who are affected.
Aid agencies say they are concerned that population movement due to the fighting in Jonglei state might spread the disease to other parts of the country. The government says it has granted security clearance to allow humanitarian organizations access to Duke County, where the outbreak has been declared. It says that's to enable aid agencies to deliver supplies and respond to the outbreak. However, access to parts of Jonglei state remains a challenge amid the ongoing fighting. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Now, a new study released by World Weather Attribution shows that extreme flooding in southern Africa was worsened by climate change and ongoing La Nina weather patterns. The report indicated a 40% increase in rainfall intensity since pre-industrial times. That is partly due to warmer ocean temperatures from greenhouse gas emissions. Severe floods across Mozambique, South Africa and Zimbabwe have now killed more than 200 people and caused significant damage, with some areas experiencing a year's worth of rain in just a few days. Experts say La Nina, which typically brings wetter conditions, is now occurring in a moisture-rich atmosphere, leading to unprecedented impacts on communities. That is, despite the government's under-preparedness for such crises. And in the Zambian capital, Lusaka, heavy floods have submerged roads in various neighborhoods, disrupting movement and education. CGTN's Crystal Onkeo reports.
It should be a normal Wednesday morning, but these are the scenes unfolding in Kanyama and Kamwala South neighborhoods of Zambia's capital, Lusaka. Residents and school-going children are having to wade through knee-deep water as roads are rendered impassable. However, many have decided it's not worth the effort and expense.
It rained heavily in the night, and on that day, learners came late for school. And some of them, they had to come in their plastic shoes because they feared that their shoes could get damaged. And so since that day, the attendance has been a bit poor, because some of them, their uniforms were wet, their books got wet.
The flooding also impacted teachers forced to deal with flooded homes. Residents are concerned that the rise in flood waters, combined with the lack of care with waste, could lead to the spread of disease.
People now are throwing diapers, especially this road where I stay. They throw diapers, any kind of dirty thing, which at a later time that can cause a lot of diseases.
After futile efforts to manually drain the rainwater, community members have decided to take matters into their own hands.
The situation was bad. We were immersed in water. Even some houses were flooded with water inside and the outside. So as a community, we tried to help ourselves by buying a machine to pump the water out into the main drainage.
These floods are part of an ongoing pattern of severe weather in Southern Africa that has affected about 1.3 million people in the region. Crystal Onkeo, CGTN.
Well, Mozambique is also reeling from the flooding. The United Nations World Food Programme says it's scaling up to deliver life-saving food assistance to reach 450,000 people.
Waterfall that you see behind me is actually Xai-Xai's main city. Xai-Xai is the provincial capital, and so on this road you had banks, you had gas stations, you had supermarkets, and all this has been underwater for a week now. WFP has been here also from day one supporting the government's efforts, and the food is reaching people in very difficult to reach areas. We're using all means possible to do so, including amphibious vehicles.
Right, well, we're coming up on the business here on Africa Live. Here are your headlines. Ethiopia's $1 billion debt restructuring deal stalls. And we'll visit South Africa's Western Cape, where luxury water is drawing an increasing number of visitors.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca. Among the crowds in Cairo.
Who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile. Along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Time for the business news. Ethiopia's hopes of restructuring a $1 billion Eurobond have stalled after a section of creditors opposed a draft plan. Ethiopia's finance ministry said its commercial lenders say the deal favors the country's state lenders. The government will now enter further negotiations with the ad hoc bondholder committee to review the comparability of treatment principle of the deal under the G20's common framework. Now, the committee represents US and European investors who hold more than 45% of the 2024 Eurobond. Ethiopia defaulted on the Eurobond in late 2023 and opted to rework its debt under the G20's common framework initiative. The debt restructuring agreement announced earlier this month would have handed bondholders a 15% write-down on the principal amount through an exchange with a new note for $850 million maturing in mid-2029. In Tanzania, a $2 billion railway has been hailed by the government as a symbol of modernity and a critical transport link between the port of Dar es Salaam and landlocked neighbors. However, just 2 years into its operations, the electric standard gauge railway, built to replace an aging meter gauge network, has begun facing the realities of climate change. Earlier this month, authorities suspended train services between Dodoma and Morogoro after heavy rains damaged key sections of the infrastructure. So what does this mean for the government's future plans for rail? CGTN's Isaac Lucando has that report.
Since its launch in June 2024, Tanzania's standard gauge railway has transported more than 4.3 million passengers. Many commuters now depend on the 4-hour journey between Dar es Salaam and the capital Dodoma, a trip that previously took up to 8 hours by road. Until recently, operations had remained largely smooth before erratic weather conditions forced a temporary suspension of services.
Even major airlines in developed countries postpone flights when there are strong winds or heavy rains. This is not unusual. I want to make it clear to the Tanzania Railway Corporation that the lives of Tanzanians comes first. Safety must always be the top priority. It is better for a journey to be postponed than for people to travel when their safety cannot be guaranteed.
Tanzania's Railway Authority has dismissed claims that the recent damage was caused by design or construction flaws, saying instead that the disruption resulted from erosion along riverbanks near the rail corridor. Officials insist the SGR was built to withstand extreme weather, featuring reinforced embankments, improved drainage systems, and durable culverts designed to manage heavy water flows during intense rainfall. And ensuring the line can run smoothly is vital for future growth. For the government, the port of Dar es Salaam remains central to expanding both the scale and efficiency of the standard gauge railway. Currently handling about 28 million tons of cargo annually, authorities plan to increase that figure to 30 million tons by 2030. The envisioned 2,000-kilometer SGR network is expected to serve as a high-capacity transport corridor to boost regional trade across East Africa. The government says it is finalizing key works to integrate the railway directly with port operations in Dar es Salaam.
Once completed, this project will increase container handling efficiency to about 480,000 units per year and raise rail freight transportation from the current 2% to approximately 12%.
Despite funding constraints and climate-related disruptions, the government says it remains committed to extending the railway to Burundi. Last year, Tanzania signed a $2 billion contract with China Railway Engineering Group to undertake the construction over a 6-year period. Officials believe the expanded network will significantly enhance trade flows and strengthen economic integration across East Africa. Isaac Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Now turning to South Africa, which is renowned for its scenic vineyards and wine tasting activities, particularly in the Western Cape. However, a different kind of beverage is now drawing tourists to the region, water. Yet, despite the luxury aspect of the initiative, its founder says he's desperate for people to understand its real value. CGTN's Sophia Shimechero explains.
Wine tastings have for a long time been the norm in this estate in Stellenbosch. A new experience is now drawing tourists in huge numbers. These elegant glass bottles hold something much lighter, a resource many take straight from the tap, yet here it's treated with the same prestige as wine. Guests are offered a curated 45-minute sensory experience, taking samples from across the globe. And visitors say it's a real eye-opener.
So I'm a person that says water is water. And it was actually very interesting to actually be able to taste the different flavors in the water. I didn't think I was going to, because I'm a tap water. I'll just give myself tap water.
My interest from water, I think, originates from how the water tastes to me. I really find the different flavors. So that is my interest in the water. And then with my interest in the wine tasting or the water tasting at Lanzarote, it was fueled by my love for water and an interest in, okay, what is a water tasting really? It's kind of when you hear it the first time, it's kind of like a ha-ha, like what can that actually be? Water is water.
Nico Peters, a water sommelier and owner of the Fine Water Company, was previously a brewer. He developed an interest in water during the COVID-19 pandemic when South Africa banned the sale and distribution of alcohol. This led him to become one of only 2 certified water sommeliers in the country. Peters boasts a library of 40 brands drawn from Armenian volcanic springs to ancient Czech glaciers.
I've got water from Mexico, from France, from New Zealand, from Germany. There's a very special bottle of water from Balban in Slovenia, which is where they actually use the CO2 of grapes that are fermenting to carbonate the water. So it's a fermenting grape CO2 to use for carbonation in water.
Beyond the luxury tasting, Peters says it's important to showcase and educate about water and its scarcity. According to national statistics, at least 45% of households in South Africa had piped drinking water in their dwellings in 2023. But he says too often these households forget just how fortunate they are.
When you have a tap that's open, that's running, and you saw dollars or rands running out of that tap, you'd absolutely run and close the tap. Or you see a pipe that's burst in Cape Town and the water's just running down the road. If that water had value, then you'd report it immediately. So we have to add a value to water for people to take care of water, because if it's free, then it has no value and people perceive it like that.
By celebrating its complexity, water is no longer just an ordinary drink, but something to savor, study and delight in. Sophia Shimachero, CGTN.
Over now to Washington, where U.S. President Donald Trump has named former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh as the bank's next chair. The term of the current chair, Jerome Powell, is set to end in May. Warsh formerly served as the Apex Bank's Board of Governors from 2006 to 2011. His appointment comes amid an aggressive push by the Trump administration to lower borrowing costs. Over the past year, the U.S. president has repeatedly insulted Powell over the matter in public and even threatened to fire him, raising concerns over the bank's independence. Now, the nomination will require Senate confirmation. Well, Warsh's nomination gave the U.S. dollar a boost against a basket of major currencies. The greenback recovered some of this week's losses, trading 0.35% higher on the news. A deal to stave off a looming government shutdown by Republican and Democratic lawmakers also helped the currency stabilize. Escalating conflict abroad and unease over domestic immigration crackdowns have hammered the U.S. currency this month. It's time for a short break. Here's what's coming up on the sport. Egypt continues its dominance in squash with a double win at the Tournament of Champions in New York.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
We start with squash, and it was double delight for Egypt at the Tournament of Champions in New York as the North African country maintained its global dominance in the sport. Women's world #1 Hania El Hamami edged a 5-set classic against 4th seed American Olivia Weaver. Incredibly, the 25-year-old found herself 9-3 down in the decider, yet she scored 8 unanswered points against her stunned opponent to win. She becomes only the 4th female player to retain the trophy. Meanwhile, it was a less dramatic win for Mustafa Asal in the men's action, who coasted home in straight sets. Indeed, the 24-year-old only gave up 11 points in the whole match. First held in 1930, the tournament is one of the most prestigious on the season's calendar. Let's get an update from the CAF Champions League, where Al Hilal Omdurman stunned South African champions Mamelodi Sundowns last night to seize control of Group C. The Sudanese club opened the scoring deep into first half stoppage time in Kigali, with Mohamed Abdelrahman converting from the spot. Jean-Claude Girumugisha doubled the lead soon after the restart before Brazilian substitute Arthur Salles halved the deficit. However, the Pretoria Giants were unable to complete the comeback, so Al Hilal go top on 8 points, 3 ahead of Sundowns with 2 games to go. Action continues today with record winners Al Ahly away to Tanzanian champions Yanga in Group B. The Egyptians beat the Dar Giants 2-0 in the reverse fixture a week ago to open a 3-point gap at the summit. Elsewhere in the group, AS FAR of Morocco host Algeria's GS Kabylie, with both still looking for their first win. Group D leaders Stade Malien, meanwhile, are away to Petro de Luanda of Angola. Now look ahead to this weekend's Premier League action in England, and leaders Arsenal travel to Leeds today, with manager Mikel Arteta announcing that returning German forward Kai Havertz is ready to start at Elland Road. The Gunners haven't won in the league since early January, yet remain 4 points clear of the closest challengers, Manchester City.
Yeah, I don't talk like with my wife every 3 days, but we talked. I'm quite January, and I think he talks about how he feels, and that's it. There are mind games, but I don't pay too much attention, because at the end you have to go on the pitch and deliver.
In today's other fixtures, Everton will be looking to complete the league double over Brighton when they visit the Amex. But the Toffees will be without England winger Jack Grealish, who, according to manager David Moyes, is out for the season with a stress fracture. Bottom side Wolves are home to Bournemouth, while Chelsea host West Ham in a London derby. Liverpool play Newcastle United at Anfield in the late game after slipping to 6th in the league. Reds head coach Arne Slot admitted qualification for next season's Champions League will be challenging.
The way we've positioned ourselves now makes probably every game even more crucial, because that's definitely what we want to achieve. Then it is a crucial game, as the next one is a crucial one, as the next one is a crucial one as well. And we've experienced how tough it is to play against Newcastle in the 1.5 year I'm here now. It's always been a very tough contest, very tough game for us.
Meanwhile, Newcastle now know their playoff opponents in the Champions League following yesterday's draw. The Magpies will face Karabag of Azerbaijan for a place in the last 16. Defending champions PSG have a French derby against Monaco. Juventus will try their luck against Galatasaray, while Inter Milan take on Bodo Glimt. Atletico Madrid were drawn against Club Brugge. Borussia Dortmund will face Atalanta, while Bayer Leverkusen are up against Olympiacos. Arguably the biggest tie of the playoff round is Benfica and Real Madrid. The Portuguese side beat the Spanish giants in the final round of fixtures in the league phase to get this far. Now they'll have to do it all over again over 2 legs to advance further. The winners of these 8 ties will face the top 8 seeds in the last 16, with Real now looking forward to the Jose Mourinho reunion.
That result, they were practically out of the competition, and with that goal in the last minute, they got through. So, logically, they'll be in high spirits, and we obviously have to be really careful.
In the Saudi Pro League, Cristiano Ronaldo got his 17th goal of the season to help Al Nassr beat 10-man Al Kholoud 3-0 away from home and close the gap on leaders Al Hilal to 3 points. The 40-year-old broke the deadlock 2 minutes into the second half with his 961st career goal, combining well with fellow Portuguese João Felix for a tidy finish. 6 minutes later, Mohamed Simakan doubled the visitors' lead with another Felix assist. With less than 20 minutes left, things got worse for the hosts when captain Hatan Babri received a second yellow, and was sent off after VAR review. Al Nassr were awarded a penalty with 7 minutes to go for a foul on former Bayern Munich forward Kingsley Coman, who stepped up to score. Now to the Australian Open, and China's Zhang Shuai and her partner Elise Mertens are women's doubles champions. The experienced pairing beat Anna Danilila and Alexandra Krunic in Saturday's final in Melbourne. It is Zhang's 3rd doubles Grand Slam title and her first with the Belgian beside her. In a roller counter encounter, the number 4 seeds fell 4-1 behind in the first set, but managed to claw their way back to force a tiebreaker. Meanwhile, they managed to burn through 6 set points before finally taking it to 7 points to 4. The second set was almost a carbon copy of that tiebreaker as Zhang and Mertens stormed into a 5-love lead, only to pull up as the finishing line drew close. In the end, they took 6 games to 4, and their joy was obviously mixed with a tinge of pure relief.
This is our second time play together at the Grand Slam. First time we make to the final, and this time we got trophy, very special. And then we show every team how good we are. And then we play so many great team, and then so many great singles player, doubles player. We play everything.
I think we adapt well to each other in a sense that we communicate well. And we're both kind of like fighters on court, so we don't want to give any presents to the opponent. So yeah, I think we're both kind of similar in that way, that we give ourselves 100% always, if it's singles, if it's doubles, and we have that mentality.
Well, the sheer drama in the women's doubles followed Friday's extraordinary events on the Rod Lava, which will surely go down as one of the most memorable days in the tournament's long history. It was the men's semi-finals day in Melbourne, and what a day it was as fans were treated to not one but two five-set classics. Novak Djokovic was the story of the round as the 38-year-old rolled back the years to dethrone two-time champion Jannik Sinner in a gripping late-night showdown. The Serbian legend, who's chasing a 25th slam, came from behind twice to stun the world number 2. He wrapped up the final set 6-4, much to the delight of the crowd. Djokovic said he knew he needed to bring intensity, and he is happy that he did.
It feels surreal, to be honest. Playing almost, it was over 4 hours, almost 2 a.m. Reminiscing in 2012 when I played Rafa in the finals. That was 6 hours almost, but the level of intensity and I guess the quality of tennis was extremely high, and I knew that was the only way for me to have a chance to win tonight against him.
Well, the 10-time champion will face Carlos Alcaraz in Sunday's final after the Spaniard came through his own battle earlier in the day, overcoming severe bout of cramp to defeat Alexander Zverev in a 5.5-hour marathon. Despite leading by 2 sets to 1 point, at 1 point, the world number 1 looked down and out late in the 5th as the big German had a chance to serve for the match. Yet Alcaraz not only broke to level the decider at 5-all, but he would hold serve and then break Zverev again to send the Rod Lava crowd into raptures. The match included 3 tiebreakers, so the 22-year-old will be chasing a career Grand Slam on Sunday, with Djokovic chasing a 25th Grand Slam to round off an extraordinary career.
I always say that you have to believe in yourself, no matter what, no matter what you're struggling, you've been through, no matter anything, you gotta still believing in yourself all the time. I was struggling in the middle of the 3rd set. It's physically it was one of the most demanding matches that I have ever played in my short career, I would say.
Well, we leave it there on Africa Live. If you'd like to get in touch with the program at any time, you can send your feedback to those contacts on your screen and give us a follow as well on all of our digital media platforms. I'm Mahia Mutua. Thanks for watching Africa Live.